Good morning,
Good morning.
Michael.
How are you?
All right, how are you?
Doing good.
This is like 2 weeks in a row we're at our houses. Like something's wrong here, man. I think the next couple weeks we'll be here. So, how's your Friday morning going?
It's going. I just got back in town yesterday, so I enjoyed sleeping in a little bit and just getting to go for a walk. So
awesome.
I'm chilled out, ready for a good conversation.
Yes, and it got cold all of a sudden too in Louisville and Cincinnati here. So,
but the sun is out, so I'll take it. So apologies to anyone watching anywhere with a bunch of rain coming in.
That's right. And I actually heard like the North or the Midwest, upper Midwest might have a blizzard this weekend. I don't want that. So, well, awesome. Hey, Michael, why do we do Experience Friday Live and why does experience matter to us?
Yeah, so it's a yes, right? So yes, experience matters because people deserve good experiences, right? But experience also matters because companies, if you want to keep up, you've got to start delivering on experience. And the reason that you may be challenged with experience is that you end up with silos. I heard a really great quote yesterday, and I'm not sure if it was George Carlin or not, but I'm going to go look it up. It was with a picture of him. And it basically said, one-on-one, people are amazing. And the second you start putting 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 people together, that's where the shit gets complicated. And isn't that true? And it's true for teams, and we're going to be talking about that today with our guest. But it's also true just with silos. Well-intended people designing stuff, and they're not designing right. They end up in silos, and then they don't know what to do with it. So that's why we look at the ecosystem of experiences where the web of people and touch points and systems all come together to define that experience that an organization has. And then it becomes a competitive thing for companies as well if you leverage experience correctly. And we're in this weird time right now where things are shifting, and I'm afraid it's one of those things that if you're not, there was a time that websites were the cool thing, right? And if you had one, you were cutting edge, and then it shifted. If you don't have it, you're screwed. And I think that's where we are with experience. If you used to be, you had it, you had a little bit of an edge, and you were cool and trendy. Now, if you don't, you're lost. You're way behind already. So, experience.
Well, love it. For everyone, we've got a lot of people listening today. We're seeing comments come in. Let's look at here, Michael. We have great to be here. First time from Canada. Looking forward to seeing Will Sullivan. That's awesome. I think we have some Will fans joining us today. But each week on Experience Friday Live, we humanize the complex world of experience ecosystems, as Michael said. Just a couple quick announcements for everybody, just so you know. Next week on Experience Friday Live, we're really excited to have Taylor Carr, Director of Experience and Innovation at Quest Diagnostics, a very dear friend of ours, and partner in much of what we've done as well. Next week, New Experience Horizons on the Combustion Chronicles. It's a great podcast. 10 to 12 minute sections dropping next Wednesday. So you don't want to forget about that. So, Michael, without further ado, we need to talk about Will Sullivan. Will Sullivan is a leader who delivered, and let me get this right, 150 million happy customers and made countless staff members feel appreciated. He spent 25 plus years of leading frontline teams at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, who often welcomed an average of 25,000 guests per day. And he gets excited helping organizations who take team building, staff morale, and customer service and being authentic and empathetic leaders seriously. He says, and I love this quote, "I can spot a fake from a mile away. Newsflash, so can your staff." So let's welcome Will to the stage with us, Michael. Hey, Will.
Hey there. Good to see you guys. Thanks for having me today.
Great to have you on with us. Wow, those are some big numbers there, Will. Like,
yeah, you actually impressed
150
me.
million.
Yeah.
So, hey, Will, as a leader, why do you do what you do? Give us like a 90-second pitch of why you do what you do.
So you explained the 25 years, the 2,500 people I did it with each day, right? No one does anything alone. With all of those visitors, it all adds up. 25,000 people on average. I didn't know what I was doing when I first got into what I was doing. I was the guy who came into New York City thinking I was going to be an accountant and quietly punch numbers somewhere. I'm thrust into what I loved for over 25 years, and that was being with the teams, welcoming all of these guests. My retail career, everything brought me across the 3 campuses, a dozen stores, you name it. I never felt like I worked. Well, there were a couple of days where it wasn't so great. I'm human, right? But I loved it. And the secret to getting all of that work done, you can't think of what you need to deliver. It was the staff. It's the people you're working with. And for me, I focused all on them, and they taught me way more than I could teach them. If I could be the conduit to try to make the impossible seem possible, then that's where I was just jumping out of my skin each and every day. And
wow,
that's really it. I left my role as the head of visitor experience a couple of months ago because after being part of the New York City Museum's reopening task force, the world shuts down. New York City needs to reopen. You're then working with dozens of cultural institutions, figuring out how do you do this. And the entire process of figuring out how to reopen was focused on the staff and the guests to make sure you were creating safe environments. So how I left the world that I loved because I was seeking people like you, right? That ecosystem. You talk about the ecosystem and the silos. That's where I am very, very passionate and where I want to do more with the company that I've formed, Aspiring Better Human.
Well, love it. Love it. And I love the title, Aspiring Better Human.
That's a nod to the team.
Yeah, that's right. Like, so we talk about at Mophie that we are human obsessed and maverick minded. And we get asked a lot of questions about what that is. But I think you're a little bit of a maverick, Will. So
I'll take that. I've been called other things. I'll take that one.
Well, let's jump into this. And Michael, I'm going to pull the quote up because this is a great quote that symbolized what you were saying, Will. And I'm going to let Michael take over and just dive into some discussions there. If you take care of your employees and they'll take good care of your customers, and your business will take care of itself. Now, that's from J.W. Marriott. As you know, Will, I worked for the Disney company. You see behind me, for those that are new to the show, I was fortunate to be a Walt Disney Imagineer. This philosophy, and by the way, I'm a Marriott loyalist to a fault. Michael will tell you even. Michael, what about this? What is this that you want to dig into with Will to talk about today, because I think it's powerful and we talk about this.
It is. And on the one hand, Mr. Marriott was not the only person to say this, right? So on the one hand, it's not rocket science. On the other hand, it is rocket science because people don't do it, right? So where do you find yourself in this quote? Like, what about this just rings true for you?
To me, it's always been the team. I have been in situations and put in departments and led complicated logistics, and it's always the people. If you listen to the people who are in front of the customer, answering the phones, doing the work, they will lead you to what it is that the customer really wants. Now, I've worked with some of the most talented people probably on the planet at the Met. And it's all great work. All of you, if you haven't been to the Met, you need to go. It's just a wonderful place. But when it comes to service, it's something that you're in a large organization. It can sometimes be clumsy, and there's so many things that you need to do. So I can't solve all the problems. No one person can solve all the problems. But what I could do, and what I did my entire career, was focus on the teams that were face to face with the public, right? They'll tell you what they need, what's working, what's not. And that drives me. Figuring out what's truly needed from the point of view of that one-to-one, the staff member and the customer.
So what do you say to frustrated leaders to say that is all well and great if you have the right people? I don't have the right people, or if I do have the right people, they're certainly not doing our brand justice right now. Like, what do you say to that?
The name of my company, Aspiring Better Human, came out of the fact that I was hiring aspiring actors, singers, dancers, curators, conservators, right? And so what I'd realized early on in my career, if you were hiring people who really wanted to become a curator, a librarian, a conservator, working in a customer service role, it usually didn't work, not because they were bad people. That's not what made their heart sing. You look for people who want to be actors, singers, performers, love people. You find people who love people. You can teach them the POS. You can teach them the rules. You can teach them the policies and the pricing. You can't teach people how to like other people and to be comfortable with other people.
Well, and Michael, this brings up, and Michael will laugh about this. Will, and I think you and I have had this conversation. Former pastor in one of my careers, I preach a 3-point sermon for all leaders. And one of those points is you can't be a leader if you don't love people. Right. So I don't understand why people go into leadership if they don't like people and they don't love people. Right. Because if you don't love people, go be an individual contributor. Right. Right? But these people that are on the front line and all of those things who don't like people, I'm like, I don't get it. I just don't get it.
Right. Absolutely. And you watch it and you see it. So one of my last projects in the last few years was really looking at the department that I was leading, one of the admissions area. And when you approach it from the point of view and you're honest, you're going to have thousands of people per hour coming to you. It isn't lovely and perfect. You aren't going to be in the galleries admiring the art all day. When you're upfront and you tell people what the role is, then you create, as best as you can, the time for them in their day to go appreciate the art, understand what it is that they represent at that front door. And so I do think that you're absolutely right, Shawn. If you don't find people who love people, you cannot create a service environment. And the visitor, the guest, the customer sees it and feels it. And I think we're now heading into a new world where we're going to have to reboot what the word service and experience means. And that gets me stoked.
Well, and we used to say at Disney, you may need to go make magic someplace else.
So polite of you.
Right. We didn't fire people. And I think, Michael, we heard I don't even remember who it was on the podcast or in a meeting we were at that says we liberate people, right? We liberate them because don't be the service industry if you don't love people.
Right. Exactly.
Michael.
Yeah, and I think there's some nuance there too, right? That it's not black and white. And I think one of the things we do is we try to get into some of the depth in these conversations, which is why to have someone with your experience is so nice. That yes, in the end, they do need to be able to interact with people, but there's also tools, right? And there's motivating them, and there's inspiring them, and it's meeting them where they are, right? So what are some of those other nuances in addition to hiring the right people that love people?
For me, right, it's the training that is part of what you need to do your job, because it's basic that people do not want to feel foolish. They do not want to feel as though they don't have the answers or where to find the answers. So you've got to do that really solid technical training. For me personally, and the best people that I've ever worked with are the leaders, the managers, the supervisors who actually know their staff members. I am a nosy, talkative person. I want to know people's stories. I connect with them, and in my brain, I remember people's names and if they have kids and where they're from. And it's not a trick. And people have asked me, how do you do that? It's just what makes me tick. I am naturally interested in other human beings. So that helps humanize the workplace. And then we all have bad days, and you can have terrific breakdowns in service. And sometimes the village is overwhelmed with what needs to be done. But when it's a group of people that know one another and actually care about one another, then you can create magic. Absolutely. To me, the personal knowing who is on your team is more important than the training manual on how you print out a ticket.
Well, and you just preached the second point to my sermon. Build relationships. Build radical relationships. So you got to love people. You have to build relationships. And then my third point in that is, and you just kind of nailed it too, you have to be transparent as a leader. There are days when it's shitty. It's bad.
Yep.
And I need to say that as a leader. It's a bad day, but we're all going to get through this together, right? And again, I love how Michael always talks about this. It's not rocket science, but why does it feel like it's rocket science? I mean, I'm not griping. It keeps us in business, keeps you in business. So, but it just seems so simple to me.
But so how many years you were at the Met? How many years?
Over 25. It was about 27, 28 in total. All my different roles.
That's a long time. So what's the secret sauce for longevity in this type of position, right? Like you talk about, there are bad days. Yes, we're human. We have bad days. We have to have coping mechanisms. We have to have tools to be able to keep us going. So like what's that for you?
I fell in love with my team. I fell in love with the visitor. And so, as I said earlier, and it's not hokey or it's not a hook, I actually jumped out of bed. I loved the energy of the crowd, of the people, of solving things, and not me in particular solving it, but watching the team come up with creative ways. So, and we talk about this all the time. You have to answer, where's the bathroom? Where's the exit? Countless number of times each day. And you have to, in my mind, and I always thought of it this way, you have to answer that question like, no one's ever asked me that before, right? And that comes from a place of caring about people. Put yourself in that visitor, that guest, that diner's seat, and don't make them feel like they're annoying you and bothering you. You have to find people like myself, not that I have the answer, but that isn't going to just point to the restroom or roll their eyes with what a silly question about where's the exit. It's over there where it says exit. But people are overwhelmed, especially in a city like New York and a place as magnificent as the Met. You need to be aware of what it is that you are doing for that person, for your staff member, and for that guest.
So I want to take it, and Michael, I know I want to take it to a spin, because there are people that are going to listen to the show and go, oh, that's just all fluff, right? But what advice do you have for people who are trying to navigate that tension between revenue focus and being people focused? Like, what advice do you give them? Because I think we as an industry, as experienced leaders, have really failed at building the value of what experience can do and be.
So if you ask me to choose between the revenue goals and the people, choose the people. Because if you choose the people, you will figure out how to get to the revenue goals. We've all worked with leaders and we all know people. You focus on the revenue goals and you come up with a list of how you're going to get there, and you flop. You go to your teams and you say, what the are we going to do? How are we going to do this? And if you've created that bond and you've created that sense of community, whether you're in a small little shop that we manage at airports or in the Great Hall at the Met with thousands of people per hour, you create this sense of, we're in this together, we're going to figure it out. And it's amazing the innovation that comes from the people that are doing the work. They'll lead you to the answers. They may not create the environment. They may not be putting on the show or manufacturing product, but they know how to service the person asking the questions if you have the right people.
And what do you say to the CFO who is, looking at numbers? I'm sure you had to look at numbers and defend numbers and explain numbers. How do you do that as the kind of the liaison almost between the frontline and the CFO?
I think of it as honesty. I always showed up, whether it was with my team or with the public. I tried to work with my colleagues, my leaders, my bosses, and just explain the reality of the situation. And like you say, rocket science. It's not rocket science to just be open and honest and not fearful. Right? It's easy for me to say, but if you go to leaders, and I have found my leaders and people, they want to know the truth. But we live in an environment and in a world, and sometimes there's corporate cultures where you're not allowed to have the excuse. And it's not about excuses. If you can explain the actual conditions on the floor with the teams, you can then maybe come together. You used the word silo earlier, and that is something that I think is having a negative impact across the globe, because you are in a marketing department, you do your piece. You're in a finance department, you do your piece. And it's too broken up, and it doesn't tie together in the way that it needs to.
Oh, you're speaking like, I wasn't going to do it today, but see now, Will, you make me have to do it. Michael hates when I have to do it. I have to get the pom-poms out. Like, yes, Will. Like, okay, we have got so many comments, and we're trying to keep up with them. But Grace Brady says, hey, Shawn, please ask Will to speak on his experience on the reopening team, working between leadership and his teams. He has great insight on this: complications, conflict, and resolutions. So we got to hear about this.
So Grace out on the West Coast, the Will and Grace show came to an end this summer when she moved west and I left that. We were part of the reopening team. And that was also magic, because in this very room for 5 months while the city was shut down, we met the most incredible people, met each and every morning, working, looking at data, looking at health statistics, and we argued, we debated, we turned our cameras off and probably banged our head on the desk, but we came together and reopened the Met. We reopened New York City. And for me, having that small group of people trusting one another and putting that kind of effort into, like I said earlier, the staff well-being and what the visitor would experience was really life-changing for me. And Grace out there, I'll come visit you one day. We'll celebrate our success.
So one more question, and then we've got a question for you this is a question from Jan Tuckwood. Aren't silos created by insecure managers? How do you avoid this?
That's a really good question. I think silos are, how do I put this? Unfortunately, insecure people create most things, right? You need to have confident people who aren't afraid to speak the truth. I really think when you're looking at a company, and that's what I'm setting out to do, set my own company, you guys are doing it. You want to set yourself up with people that you trust, people that you respect. And if you can create a company philosophy and create something where you can have those debates and different points of view, you can create, I honestly believe you can create something that isn't siloed.
Yeah, I totally agree. Love it. So one last question for you. What trends about customer experience do we need to be paying attention to for 22 and beyond?
Okay, this is my husband's in the other room. Don't tell him this. I'm supposed to be on an 18-month sabbatical. 6 weeks into the 18 months, I grew bored. I started to go out to LinkedIn, finding people like yourself, reading the news, seeing what's happening. We've got to build or rebuild service experience. There's pent up demand for people to go out to get beyond this episode on this planet, and we have to figure out how do you find people that will love being in that service realm again, because right now it's not fun and it's scary. I believe people are scared to be in it just because of all of the regulations and the heaviness of it all. We need to look as companies who will succeed as they build back to focus on what you guys talk about, the ecosystem. It's if you don't, I mean, that like it blew my mind. It's an ecosystem. It isn't just a group of people that are called frontline workers providing customer service and smiling. They know that. They do that. How do you create a company culture where everyone believes in the customer, the guest? That's it. And I think
love
that's
that.
a new trend.
Yeah, I love the signal, and what I get out of that, Michael, and is rebuild the service industry. We have to now again reimagine, rethink, and rebuild what the service industry is. And Michael and I have had lots of discussions about this. It was kind of funny, Michael, but I had a memory pop up today. 2 years ago today, Michael and I were in Abu Dhabi. And the service industry in Abu Dhabi and Dubai is very different than the service industry in America. And so it's just, I love that. We have to really rethink the service industry. Well, Will, this goes fast. I told you.
Yes. Thank you.
The best way for people to get a hold of you is probably LinkedIn, right?
Absolutely.
Sullivan.
LinkedIn.
Yeah, and you can connect with me, and I can get you to Will, whatever. So, Will, thank you. Thank you. If you will hang out in the green room while Michael and I close up the show, we'll come back and say bye to you. But thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for everyone who tuned in today. Thank you.
Absolutely. Hey, everyone. Again, thank you. Michael, that was so awesome. Just loved his insights. And I had not even thought about that rebuild the service industry piece. So great nugget. Hey, if you want to get a hold of Michael and I, www.mofi.co or at ShawnNason.com, or you can send us an email at hello@mofi.co. As I mentioned previously, our podcast, The Combustion Chronicles, this whole season has been about experience. We have an exciting new season we're planning starting in January. You can connect with both Michael and I on LinkedIn. We love to connect with people. And most importantly, if you play in this experience ecosystem that we were talking with Will about, we want you. Send us a note. We want to have you on the show. We want practitioners on the show that want to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of everything that's happening. Michael, it's come to the end again.
It is.
Well, you have an amazing weekend, my friend, and we will talk soon. And bye to everybody.